something absolutely bizarre just happened in movie theaters. For the first time in 38 years, audiences walked out of a Predator film cheering for the Predator. Not the humans, not some scrappy survivor, the literal 7-foot alien hunter that's been terrorizing Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny Glover since the Reagan administration. And here's what's really messed up. There's a scene where this predator grabs a cute blonde android by the torso and hurls her like a football across the screen. She could be completely destroyed on this death planet. And you know what the entire theater did? They laughed. They actually laughed. How did Dan Trachtenberg pull this off? How did he make us emotionally invest in a creature whose species has been hunting humans for sport across 7 movies? The answer is way more twisted and brilliant than you think. Let me set the stage. Predator Badlands just hit theaters on November 7th, 2025, and it's already broken every rule in the franchise playbook. This isn't another group of commandos getting picked off in the jungle. This isn't even humans running from the monster. This is the first Predator film where the Predator is the protagonist. His name is Dek. He's young, he's small by Yautja standards, and he's been told his entire life that he's worthless. His own father literally ordered his brother to execute him because runts don't deserve to live in their warrior culture. The film opens with this brutal family drama. His brother, Quay, saves his life at the last second by launching him into a ship and sending him off-world. Dek's mission? Hunt and kill the Kalisk, the most dangerous predator on the deadliest planet in the universe, a creature so terrifying that even his clan leader father fears it. That planet is Genna, and everything there wants you dead. But here's where it gets interesting. Deke crashes on this nightmare world and immediately finds himself outmatched. No invisibility cloak, minimal weapons, just a red glowing sword and the will to survive. Then he meets her, Thia, a Weyland-Yutani synthetic android played by Elle Fanning, except she's literally cut in half. No legs, just a torso with a personality that's somehow relentlessly optimistic, despite being stranded on a planet where the plants shoot acid darts and the wildlife will dissolve you for breakfast. Now, in any other Predator movie, this would be where the Predator kills the synthetic and moves on. But something different happens. Deke straps Thia to his back like a chatty, damaged backpack, and they form the most unlikely partnership in sci-fi history. She becomes his guide, his conscience, and though he'd never admit it, his friend. And this is where Trachtenberg's genius shows. He didn't just make a Predator movie with a Predator protagonist. He made a buddy cop movie where one character is a stoic alien warrior and the other is a legless android who won't shut up. So why does this work? Why are we suddenly rooting for the monster? First, there's the underdog effect. Dirac isn't the unstoppable killing machine we've seen in previous films. He's the runt. The outcast, the one nobody believes in. Psychologically, humans are hardwired to root for underdogs. It's called the Cinderella effect in storytelling. We project our own feelings of inadequacy onto characters who are underestimated. Dirac's father literally calls him weak and worthless, the same words many of us have heard or feared hearing ourselves. But here's the really clever part. Trachtenberg never lets us forget what Dirac is. He still rips spines out, he still hunts, he's still violent and brutal. The film earned a PG-13 rating, not because it's less violent. Critics actually say it's bloodier than most Predator films, but because all that violence is directed at aliens and synthetics, not humans. So we get the catharsis of watching Dirac be absolutely savage without the moral discomfort of watching him kill people we identify with. It's a psychological loophole, and it's brilliant. Now, let's talk about that scene I mentioned earlier, when Dek tosses Thia through the air. Why is that funny instead of horrifying? Because Trachtenberg spent the previous hour building their relationship through contrasts. Thia is verbose and optimistic. Dek is silent and grim. She sees deadly plants and goes, "Ooh, fascinating," while he's trying not to get murdered by them. Their dynamic is literally modeled after C-3PO and Chewbacca from The Empire Strikes Back. Trachtenberg confirmed this in interviews. Remember that scene where Chewie carries the damaged C-3PO on his back? Same energy, different franchise. When Dek hurls Thea, it's not violence, it's slapstick. It's the moment when their buddy cop dynamic fully clicks. She's a synthetic, so we know she'll survive, and Elle Fanning plays it with this perfect mix of surprise and acceptance. Like, well, I guess this is my life now. The film trained us to laugh at their mishaps because their relationship has become comfortable, even affectionate in the weirdest possible way.
But there's something even deeper happening here. The film's emotional core is about trauma and family. Dek is processing the loss of his brother Quay, who died saving him. Thea is searching for her sister, Tessa, another synthetic who initially saved her life but later betrays her when corporate orders take priority. Both characters have been abandoned by their biological families. Both are considered defective by their societies. Dek because he's physically smaller, Thea because she's damaged. And both find something neither expected: chosen family. There's this beautiful moment by a waterfall where they talk about what it means to survive versus what it means to live. Dek says flatly, "You should be able to survive on your own." Thea responds, "I can survive on my own, but who would want to survive on their own?" That line hits different because it's not just about them, it's about anyone who's ever felt like they had to prove themselves alone.
Now let's get to the absolutely insane action set pieces, because holy hell, this movie delivers. Remember how I said everything on Geno wants you dead? Dek learns to weaponize the entire ecosystem. There's a sequence where he befriends an acid-spitting creature that looks like a snake and rides on his shoulder like a living plasma cannon. He discovers explosive grubs that detonate when agitated. He finds dart-shooting plants. And then, and this is straight out of the Dutch playbook from the original Predator, he goes completely analog. When Weyland-Yutani sends an army of combat synthetics to capture the Kalisk, Dek doesn't use high-tech weapons. He creates improvised landmines by tying grubs to plant bundles, positions himself with his back turned like he's surrendering, then, at the perfect moment, signals his acid spitter to hit the plants. The darts launch the grubs at the synthetics, the grubs explode, and the entire platoon is obliterated without Dek getting a scratch. It's tactical, it's brilliant, and it's a direct homage to Arnold's mud-covered guerrilla tactics from 1987. Trachtenberg is literally saying, remember when the Predator was the unstoppable hunter? Well, now watch him become Dutch. The film has two main antagonists: Jor, Dek's father, and Tessa, Thea's sister synthetic. Both represent the same toxic philosophy, that weakness must be eliminated, that compassion is failure, that the mission or the clan matters more than individual lives. Jor ordered his own son's execution. Tessa literally has Thea boxed, essentially put in storage, because she's become a liability to the mission. Both villains chose duty over family, and both are positioned as the emotional opposites of what Dek and Thea represent. When Dek finally faces his father at the end, he's not the scared runt anymore. He's learned to fight smart, not strong. He's adapted. He's grown. And when he defeats Jor, his father finally says, "You're not weak." But here's the kicker. Dek doesn't want his approval anymore. He kills him anyway, because he's found something better than clan approval. He's found his own pack. And yes, their pack includes Bud, the adorable baby Kalisk, who later rips out Tessa's spine like a true predator. Talk about found family goals. There's also this brilliant meta layer to the whole film. The Predator franchise has always been about masculinity, specifically toxic masculinity. The original film is basically about alpha males getting destroyed by an even bigger alpha. Badlands flips that completely. Dek starts the film believing in the traditional Yautja code: be the strongest, kill the most, earn respect through dominance. But Thia teaches him about wolf packs, about how the alpha's job isn't to kill the most, it's to protect the pack. She literally says the word sister, and you can see something shift in Dek's worldview. He realizes strength isn't about isolation, it's about connection. In a franchise built on lone wolves and survival of the fittest, Trachtenberg made a film about chosen family and interdependence. And somehow, he did it with a faceless alien and a legless robot. Let's talk about how they actually made this. Demetrius Schuster Koloamatangi, who plays Dek, had to go through what they unofficially called Predator Ninja Warrior just to audition, an obstacle course designed to prove he could handle the physical demands. He wore a practical suit with partial head coverings, and his face was digitally enhanced by Weta Workshop to show emotional expressions. Elle Fanning spent much of the shoot strapped to Schuster Koloamatangi's back in an L-shaped position, with her legs covered in blue screens for digital removal. They also used a wheelbarrow rig where he'd pull her up hills while she sat on wheels. The two actors barely knew each other before shooting. They met briefly at a stunt rehearsal, then were immediately strapped together on location in New Zealand. That physical intimacy, that literal attachment, forced a chemistry that you can't fake with chemistry reads. Their relationship feels real because they had to trust each other completely in uncomfortable situations for months. Method acting taken to a literal extreme. The film currently sits at 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, the third highest rated Predator film after the original and Prey. Variety called it the strongest Predator film since 1987. CinemaScore gave it an A-, the highest audience grade in franchise history. It opened with $40 million, the best opening weekend in the series. But not everyone loved it. Some critics complained it's too soft, too Disney-fied, too family-friendly for a franchise built on R-rated violence and terror. The Guardian gave it 2 stars, saying Dek's humanization was in service of narrative development and that it ceases to be the Predator. One reviewer literally called it a Disney Channel original. And you know what? They're not entirely wrong. This is a more accessible, emotionally open Predator film. But that's precisely why it works for a wider audience. Trachtenberg didn't make this for hardcore fans who want another jungle slasher. He made it for people who want to feel something while watching a sci-fi spectacle. So let's circle back to the original question. Why are we rooting for the Predator? Because Trachtenberg understood something fundamental about storytelling. Perspective is everything. In the original Predator, we see through human eyes, so the Yautja is terrifying. In Badlands, we see through Yautja eyes, so humans, or synthetics, become the threat. The Weyland-Yutani Corporation, represented by combat androids and the evil AI MU-TH-R, is positioned as the real villain. Suddenly, we're watching from the outside as corporate interests try to capture and exploit alien wildlife for profit. Sound familiar? It should. It's literally the Alien franchise's core theme. The film also uses what's called the mere exposure effect. The more time we spend with someone, the more we like them, even if they're radically different from us. By the time Dek is fighting for his life, we've spent 90 minutes with him. We've seen him fail, adapt, bond, grieve, and grow. He's earned our empathy not despite being a predator, but because we've witnessed his journey. And that moment when he tosses Thia, by then we trust their relationship. We know he's not trying to hurt her. He's trying to solve a problem. And we know she'll be fine because she's proven she's tougher than she looks. The film ends with a massive setup for sequels. Dek returns to Yautja Prime with Thia and Bud. He presents Tessa's skull as proof of his kill. not the Kalisk, which he couldn't bring himself to kill after befriending Bud. His father rejects this and attacks. Dek defeats him, earning his invisibility cloak and avenging his brother Quay. Then a ship appears in the distance. "Friends of yours?" Thia asks. Dek grabs his sword and says flatly, "It's my mother." If Dek's father was that bad, imagine what his mother is like. Trachtenberg has confirmed he has grand plans for this universe, which now includes connections to both Predator, Killer of Killers, the animated film that released earlier, and the broader Alien franchise through Weyland-Yutani. We could be looking at the setup for an Alien vs. Predator reboot, or a whole series following Dek, Thia, and Bud as they navigate hostile space as outcasts from their own societies. Either way, Trachtenberg has created something rare, recurring heroes in a franchise that's been defined by expendable humans and unstoppable monsters. The film ends with a massive setup for sequels. Dek returns to Yautja Prime with Thia and Bud. He presents Tessa's skull as proof of his kill, not the Kalisk, which he couldn't bring himself to kill after befriending Bud. His father rejects this and attacks. Dek defeats him, earning his invisibility cloak and avenging his brother Quay. Then a ship appears in the distance. "Friends of yours?" Thea asks. Dek grabs his sword and says flatly, "It's my mother." If Dek's father was that bad, imagine what his mother is like. Trachtenberg has confirmed he has grand plans for this universe, which now includes connections to both Predator, Killer of Killers, the animated film that released earlier, and the broader Alien franchise through Weyland-Yutani. We could be looking at the setup for an Alien vs. Predator reboot, or a whole series following Dek, Thia, and Bud as they navigate hostile space as outcasts from their own societies. Either way, Trachtenberg has created something rare, recurring heroes in a franchise that's been defined by expendable humans and unstoppable monsters.